All right, so these are our notes for our today. This is our final day. Just a reminder, we talked about Lamarck yesterday. Remember, Lamarck had the use it or lose it approach to evolution, the idea that if you used the traits like giraffes stretching their long necks to get the food, all of their babies would automatically have long necks. By the same rule, if someone were to dye their hair pink, automatically their babies would be born with pink hair. Now we know that's wrong because individuals cannot evolve and it takes years, not years and years, not days to evolve. And all dyeing hair is changing phenotype. It doesn't change the DNA, so it cannot be just passed on. So then we get to Darwin. Now, Darwin's theory of evolution was that evolution was done by what we call natural selection. And we've talked about natural selection where nature picks the best trait. In our same giraffe example, within the population of giraffes, you would have the different food sources, right? We'd have low foods, tall foods, but we'd also have variety in the population. Remember, part of evolution requires that there's some genetic variety. So we probably had giraffes with shorter necks. And then we also would have had some giraffes with longer necks. Now, the short-necked giraffes could only eat things that were low to the ground. This was their food source. But those with longer necks could choose to either eat the low food or the high food. Over time, because you have so many giraffes eating from all the low-hanging shrubs, that food source goes away. And then over time, because this food source is gone, we only have higher food sources. Eventually, what's going to happen to my short-necked giraffes? Yeah, that's right. They're eventually going to die out, leaving the population with just longer necks. And so the population has, therefore evolved and has changed over time and has been passed on. So key things about Darwinian evolution. His theory explains that populations do the changing, not individuals. His theory explains that it takes years and years to happen. And that ultimately nature is responsible for picking the best trait, not the individual. In the case of the giraffes, the best trait was having the longer neck. All right, so that's Darwinian versus Lamarckian evolution. The last thing we talked about, grab a piece of paper here, was this other type of selection. So we talked about natural selection where nature always picks the best trait. And then the last part of selection that we're going to talk about is a type of selection called artificial selection. Artificial selection. Right. So in artificial selection, let's just remember natural selection, nature picks the best trait. In artificial selection, humans pick the best trait. They determine what is the preferred trait, what's going to increase survival. So in this example, you're going to need to pretend that you are a farmer. You are a dairy farmer, in fact. Hat here. Hat. There you go. Okay. And as a dairy farmer, you're given two breeds of cattle. There are two types of cattle you can raise. You can raise cattle that can produce 12 gallons of milk every time. Or you can raise and breed cattle that only produce 6 gallons of milk. Now, as a dairy farmer, your job ultimately is to produce this milk, but it's ultimately also to make a little bit of money. You're in a business. So you have to decide, are you going to breed 6-gallon making cows or are you going to breed 12-gallon making cows? Well, the entrepreneur in me says, I'm going to breed 12-gallon ones because that means more money ultimately for me. So this cow goes away. We're not going to worry about that cow. Well, this is an example of artificial selection because who picked the best trait? You as the farmer. The human picked the best trait. The best trait was who made more milk. You, as the human, decided that was this cow, and that was the one that was going to be bred. So now the population is all 12-gallon making cows, no more 6-gallon making cows. Another example of artificial selection would be with dog breeds. There are specific types of dog breeds now that humans have created by basically mating two different types of dogs. We have what's called the golden doodle, and this is a golden retriever mixed with a poodle. In this breed, poodles are very hypoallergenic, so they're pretty good for people with allergies. Not always, but most. And then this is a golden retriever. Humans bred these two together to create the golden doodle because they wanted to have the hypoallergenic, low shed ability of the poodle, but also the friendliness, smarts, retriever type qualities in a golden retriever. There's also a thing called a Chiweenie, which was a Chihuahua mixed with a wiener dog. There's lots of different things. So over time, artificial selection, humans decided to pick which traits they wanted in their dogs. And so that's examples of artificial selection, very different than natural selection. So that's it for our notes. That's the last little bit. Make sure you take all your pictures and then upload them to the slide deck and turn that in.